From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
If you're here to listen to Albert Goldbarth read, and well, be Albert Goldbarth, you've made a very good decision. Let me begin by saying hairballs. You know those small collections of hair or fur that cats vomit up when they begin to become too big? Right, we'll come back to them. What I want to tell you about Albert is that he's funny and smart. He's one of the smartest, funniest people I know, and I adore him and his poetry. What I should tell you about Albert is that he's the author of several collections of essays, a novel, and more than 25 collections of poetry, maybe 26. Don't you stop counting when you publish that many? He's received fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Guggenheim Foundation, has been nominated for the National Book Award, and won the Poetry Foundation's Mark Twain Award for Humorous Poetry. He's the only poet to have received the National Book Critics Circle Award for poetry twice. I should tell you that his poetry is curious, expansive, playful, philosophical, conversational, tender, effusive, honest, sprawling, relevant, self-deprecating, full of hubris, and brilliant. What I want to tell you is that Albert collects manual typewriters and vintage toy rocket ships and robots. How cool is that? I want to tell you that he has gone back, probably more than once, to a library in Iowa where they keep his master's thesis, a collection of poetry he wrote at the Iowa Writers' Workshop, and written in edits and revisions all throughout the book. I want to tell you that, and this is the truth, he has never used a computer. And as an homage to him, I handwrote this introduction, having not handwritten anything in approximately 63 years, and now I think I have carpal tunnel syndrome. I want to tell you that the first time I met Albert, many years ago, was when he served as a judge on an NEA Poetry Fellowships panel. And he had me cracking up the whole time with off-the-cuff lines like, "I wouldn't know a nature poem if it jumped up and gave me a lap dance." Which I don't believe, by the way. I think he knows nature poems because he makes it his business to know most things, though maybe not as well as he knows lap dances. I want to tell you that one of the last times I saw Albert, he won't remember this, was in the hallway of a hotel during a writing conference. It was near the ice machine outside my room, and I was there in my pajamas carrying a bucket of breast milk because I had just pumped, and if you've ever been a new mom, you'll know what that means. I don't even think he said anything. He just gave me that Albert Goldbarth eye twinkle and lip twitch of amusement, and I felt in that very moment that I was living right smack in the middle of one of his poems. I want to tell you that when you're tasked with writing an introduction for a legend of a man like Albert Goldbarth, it's daunting. Really. I mean, with more than 25 books out, what has he not written about? I emailed Jeff Schatz, his editor at Grey Wolf Press. So I've known Jeff for years. We've been known to talk about Albert on occasion. And I asked Jeff if he could think of anything that Albert hadn't yet written about. And here was Jeff's response. Anything even vaguely sexual would be out. And isn't everything at least vaguely sexual? Albert has very likely written about every topic imaginable across time and cultures and fields of study. There's something about that aspect of his work that makes me think that he's very earnest in his attempt to imagine a world he wants to live in, that if he can just call it into being within a poem or essay or within the mind's eye for a little while, at least, there is an ideal space of existence. And for Albert, that space is the poem, which is a beautiful way of saying hairballs might be the one subject he hasn't written about. It might even be the reason he hasn't yet won the Nobel Prize. But there's still time. Please welcome Albert Goldbarth.
Yo. Thanks, Amy. That was the very breast milk of human kindness. For those of you who don't know, I should say Amy is not just a bureaucrat. She is also a novelist and the author of 2 published novels. Everybody doing okay? All right. Let me work you up. You ready to give it up for poetry? Yeah! Hello, Washington. You love books? Yeah, they're great. I just discovered them. They're sort of tablet shaped. They have a flip-top capability. You can access text right away. Your fingers move it around. You bring it with you wherever you go. They are the coolest things ever. Buy a few while you're here. How many of you would consider yourselves to be, it's a slightly older crowd as my audiences tend to be more and more over the years, boomers or of the boomer generation? That will help for this. Yes. Okay. This poem goes kind of quickly. It begins sadly and dyspeptically and tries to move along into a slightly jollier place. Can everybody hear? Is this good? Okay, this is called An Explanation. I wanted to say that everything was difficult. The moon was required to crawl first with its elbows, then its knees across the sill of the window before it could enter my room. And when it did, when it stood there releasing its light like any 2-cent burglar's sweep across the objects there, creating them like stupid, startled sheep from out of darkness, when that happened and I saw how insufficient were my days and nights and bric-a-brac, then the taste of regret infused my tongue, a sour taste, a small toy taste. It can't stand like a huge stone Babylonian temple griffin in the pride of honest bitterness. And I understood the words forlorn and desolate, and thus became a wick up which, for misery loves company, the sorrows of the greater world deployed their best examples. Sorrows sometimes so more vast than mine, the woman whose child was born without a brain inside the saltwater smear of its cranium, that anything, a sudden drop in temperature of 5 degrees, a cat that keens for hours from some mystery distress, anything could send me spinning toward the edge of an unmanly weeping. And so I required an antidote. I knew that as instinctively as dogs know when to swallow grass and thus encourage vomiting. And I got in the car, this fast American panacea, out to where the empty outskirts driving gives a sacred feeling of forever to the road. And there, the more I took on speed, the more the speed took me. The more I was a supersonic ripple on the surface of the dopamine and the serotonin sugaring the night. And by the time I switched the radio to oldies rock at sound that matched the speed, that double whammy formulation of an irresistible, irrepressible, and, quite frankly, irresponsible middle-brow transcendence, by then I was howling. I was rabbinically werewolf howling to the mileage and its partner in crime and holiness, the baseline beat. And I was born to run. And I was born to be wild, bad to the bone. and born free, free as the wind blows. I was unashamedly boomer. Oh, I was speeding, and I was 8 miles high, speeding, and I could see for miles and miles and miles and miles, speeding through the purple rain. I was rocketing the stars and davening gloriously at the wailing wall of the hungry heart. My marrow was a queen bee's royal jelly of delight, and I was speeding. I was erasing the planet's grief. I was a wave of plasma physics. I was the dark gleam on the pungent roe in a slit in a fish going back to the Paleozoic. I was speeding, and I had no destination. Forward impetus was itself the destination. I was unrepentantly speeding. I was surely exoneratably speeding. Officer. That's what I wanted to say. Hairball. I'm going to read a softer, quieter poem now, having worked you up. And because this is the National Book Festival, it's a little poem that's a tribute to books and the reading life. My wife's heard me read this a million times. It's actually my favorite poem I've ever written. It's only 14 lines. It's not rhymed, it's not metered, but it asks to be a kind of loose homage to the sonnet. And I read it for those of you, I hope at this occasion, all of you who care about the life of reading, and particularly reading off the page. They can, do recording devices here? Okay, everybody comfy, ready, just 14 lines. I take you now to a Greyhound bus as it moves across the country at night in a poem that's called Shawl, S-H-A-W-L. "8 hours by bus, and night was on them. He could see himself now in the window, see his head there with the country running through it like a long thought made of steel and wheat. Darkness outside, darkness in the bus, as if the sea were dark and the belly of the whale were dark to match it. He was 20. Of course, his eyes returned repeatedly to the knee of the woman 2 rows up, positioned so occasional headlights struck it into life. But more reliable was the book. He was discovering himself to be among the tribe that reads. Now, his, the only overhead turned on. Now, nothing else existed. Only him and the book and the light thrown over his shoulders as luxuriously as a cashmere shawl. since time is passing, I'm going to read just one more poem. It has a little bit of length to it. And the epigraphs are long themselves. Because the poem goes quickly, I'll say a few things about it. The poem posits the fact that in the future there may be time travel, and time travelers from the future may actually come back and visit us, although we won't know it. They'll just be walking around unobserved by us. And the poem tries to imagine some of those possible futures, futures that brachiate, that is, spread out, branch-like. The poem actually plays with the idea of brachiation, which means something like forking out early on in its first stanza. And the poem wants to posit that although there may be amazing things happening in this future, these various futures, there may be something that the future doesn't have that we have today, understandably so. And there are two epigraphs here. The first addresses the idea of the future itself. The second addresses the idea of this thing that is part of our lives that may not exist in future time. So the poem is called To Be Read in 500 Years. Although it goes quickly, I'm sure you're a good audience and you'll ride along with me. Here's the first epigraph. To think of today and the ages continued henceforward. It's the great Walt Whitman. The second epigraph, I actually have to quickly sing, although I can't sing. So you have to be sort of open and patient and generous. But some of you, perhaps the boomers among you, will know this song. Really, I'm just going to go through it very, very quickly. I can hear her heart beating from 1,000 miles. Yeah, the heavens open every time she smiles. And when I come to her, that's where I belong. Yeah, I run into her like a river song. She give me love, 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 crazy love. She give me love, 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 crazy love. She got a fine sense of humor when I'm feeling low down. Yeah, when I come to her, when the sun goes down, take away my troubles, take away my grief, take away my heartache in the night like a thief. She give me love, 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 crazy love. She give me love, 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 ooh, crazy love. Yeah, I need her in the daytime, and I need her in the night. I want to throw my arms around her and kiss and hug her tight, yeah. When I'm returning from so far away, she give me some sweet loving, brighten up my day. Yeah, make me feel righteous, and it make me feel whole, and it make me mellow down into my soul. She give me love, 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 crazy love. She give me love, 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 crazy love. That's the great Van Morrison. To be read in 500 years. If they're right, the whiz-kid physicist, theorist, think tank guys, suggesting that every acted-on decision of ours produces a brachiation in the time stream, therefore two simultaneous independent futures, for example, one extending from my use of brachiation, one extending from my almost use of fork, so that tomorrow brachiation and tomorrow fork are equally real in parallel and coexistent tracks, Then there may be, secretly among us, a few or even entire populations of backward travelers in time from not just one, but many alternate tomorrows, so different from ourselves, it's like the thought that bitch ho rap and the sublimities of, say, Chopin are kin enough to both be reproduced by variant patterns within the same 88 keys. In one of these futures, everything essential, every attribute of humanness, even minimally desirable, is relegated to mind alone. We look like cumulonimboid dendrite structures that have flowered out of small deflated flesh pods. And the reproduction function of the species now is entirely exocorporeal, a matter of frozen protein combinations and gestation sacs of complex bioplastic. In another of these futures, it's an after we squander the oil deposits world of post-apocalyptic bare subsistence living. A day is a matter of thinning granular soil, leached, defiant of yielding to our human need and its desperate threshing. That, and there's a rumor from up over north that dog carts of marauding goons are on the march with pillage and worse, a squirm in their eyes. And then and there, in that future, all softness, all of anything without survival value has been bred out of the race, so interpersonal relationship is no more than a reflex of the genes. Or, au contraire, another future makes an ornate public fetish of the wooing game, a codified fantasia of modes of address and rank and dowry and clan and feather on cloak by depth of genealogy, etc. All of this toward a social architecture of such overmuch extent that, while it's all intensely focused on the establishing of a betrothal pair, it's all at the same time so bound up in duty and cultural sanction as to be even more devoid of anything personal, anything soulful and open to flutter than the future I've described of petro-aftershock. And therefore, none of these baffled representatives encamped in our 21st century can understand, can get the thump, the Cupid zing, the woe and the wow in our songs and poems, especially the songs, especially the glowing uranium dump that malingers all night at the bottom of the blues. Oh, especially the blues. Especially let her light shine down on me, especially by the waters of Misery Avenue. Let's not forget Heartbreak Hotel. Let's not eschew its transient cast of cinders and ashes clientele, but also the songs of tra-la-la and marital abidingness, of how sometimes a body fits a body as indivisibly as waves, or it could be particles, fit light. The poems address this too, of course, the poems as well as the songs, the let me count the ways, the roses in their fragrant and meaty botanical abundance, and the doves. Let's not forget the doves. The old thou art a summer's day and thy breasts are of wheaten beauty. Let's not dilly-dally in recognizing the wedding under the laws of God. Let's not exempt the quickie under the snooker table. The flame in the bones, the one name drummed in a bruising tattoo on the heart skin. They don't comprehend this sugar-tit thing, this sonnet thing, this sky held in the mirror pools of the Taj Mahal on a day of slowly promenading couples thing. These people of the future, as I've imagined them, don't have the apparatus of leisure we've had in a special lotus of time that's been vouchsafed to us. A mythos, a sequestering in which this serotonin and this opium are grown to a lyric degree. They, in that future wouldn't understand me sneaking out at 5 a.m. to pat that $10 Valentine tenderly into place beneath a wiper blade of Phyllis's swayback Dodge with the fishtaily brakes and the fanlight crack in the windshield. They don't know the drive-in, the down at the corner, the boardwalk, the bridge, the places where it happens and where we commemorate it. Also, a night of blind and driven howling, I pulled like an hours-long ebony scarf from the deeps of my brainstem once on Morgan's lawn. So sweet it is, this ineluctable thing, this please let one of the harder sciences objectify the biochemical basis of our, here, do that to my earlobe another time, thing. Down by the riverside, at the gates, behind the stadium, and Skylar, my wife, with the basement tiles and cowboy pajamas, she lift me up. She bring me the dominions of the morning and the thrones of the moon. They've never once experienced this impossible night of her wanting him down to the vitamins and the pepsin and the aura and the spit. And how she bring him, the rock and the water, the star and the stain. Together we heard the otherworld hosannas of wind in the maples, not to mention karaoke screech, the Gregorian chant, and the triple X rebel yowl. It requires a certain coddled recipe of history and maybe economics for this psychic condition, this giddy ap of the hormones and the industry they generate, the castles and the sly décolletage. I wanted to read her the works of Montaigne and Cervantes and Emerson, and I wanted to slip her some tongue. I was enrolled. I stayed the course from my first day in Agony 101 to my postdoc. They will never be burned by this ice. They will die without knowing the thirst in this river. She bring me the spackle. She give me the flying tackle. He build her up. He tug her plug and she drains. She becomes a puddle of ouch. She hit me with the hoodoo, with a magic spell and the candle. They will never know this candle. Yeah, she lead me up the towpath, got a diamond in my nose. She dress in ermine and sable. She barefoot in the grass. I tossed a squirm in their eyes. I tossed and tossed in the grass behind the stadium. I tossed, I thought of words like chivalrous and serenity. I spied on her. I tossed. I wanted to kill for her. She bring me the cherry wine, the toxic waste, the whole wheat and the half shell. They will never eat of this fruit and suffer its consequences. They will never beg for its juice, its family root. She be my guide, she interlocutor, my Beatrice and Virgil, and me behind in my Dante sandals following her shake that thing on the stony path. My rash, my silty unguent, she rob him, she rock him and throb him, she greet him in his guise as the charioteer of the sun in its vast celestial passage. In the centuries forthcoming, they will never know this honeycomb of confusion and its confected delight. It happens in the jazz bar, at the Casbah, in the synagogue, under the sheets, in the sand dunes, hot, hot summer, on the roof. Yes, here, now here, a little lower. She feed me, she give me, she lift me, she need me. The sound of the continents as they first tore apart and the surge of the oceans, the music of that. The songs especially, but also the poems. She take me, the rosins of craving, the tables of lust in its periodicity. They cannot and cannot and cannot partake of this feast and the terrible emptiness that follows. She make me, she lift me, I freely give her one grand opera rose and hip-hop dove. She under my skin, she knife in my mind, this thing, oh, this millennial and hallucinatory and radiant thing. She bring me, she lift me, she take me, she bring me love, 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 crazy love.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.